Hello, and welcome to Noonday Meditation and Contemplative Prayer Power Hour. My name is Martin Coward. I'm a spiritual teacher and a prosperity and mindset coach for gay, transgender, and bisexual men. And we've been creating this virtual sanctuary here since the beginning of the pandemic. We started this back in March of 2020 as a refuge, as a sanctuary for us to come in and love and support each other and get out of the drama of the crisis. And I'm so glad that we did, because it gave me a place to be loved and supported, and it gave me a place to get through it as well. And I've had such a good time working and getting to know and sharing in this crisis with others in this refuge. And I'm just very excited that I've been able to do that, and we're making some shifts in it. Now, I know that you saw I have some sad news. My guest today, Brendan Barry, is in the United Kingdom, and he sent me a text a little while ago with one bar saying his internet service was out and there was no way he could connect to join us. So he will be here on Thursday, hopefully, if the internet's back. But that's the joy of live broadcasting. There's nothing we can do. It's out of his control, out of my control. And I'm sad because I was looking. He's a wonderful, beautiful man, and he's a caregiver. He learned during giving care during the COVID that how much the caregivers needed care, and so he's really dedicating so much of his life right now to his journey is taking him into how to care for the caregivers. And it's a very interesting story to tell, and I'll look forward to him telling you that. I think he's going to be here on Thursday, but we're not sure about that, but I think he's going to come back. We're going to replan it. We've rescheduled it for Thursday. So again, I apologize for the pivot here at the last minute, but this is live, and we deal with the world as it comes to us. So there's a reason for everything. I thought what I'd do today is this month we're celebrating coaches and caregivers, and I'm a coach and caregiver. And I thought since I'm here, I'd just share you with my story of how I became a coach, and what my story is about, of my transformation of being in a place of just struggle and doubt and fear and scarcity and not enough and all of that, to where I am now, doing what I love and making money and having fun and enjoying prosperity. So I thought I would take this time today to just share with you my story of how I became a spiritual teacher and a prosperity and a mindset coach. And so it goes back to my childhood, but I'm not going to take you back to there. Okay. I'm bringing you up there. I'm going to take you back, but I am going to take you back to November of 2016. There I was in a beautiful office on the 44th floor of a high-rise in Manhattan. I was 2 doors down from the managing director. I had a wonderful view of Park Avenue in Manhattan, and I looked pretty successful, because I was what was known as a top producer in a Fortune 100 wealth management firm. But the thing is this, and I was doing pretty well, but when Trump was elected president, I went into so much fear. It terrorized me. Because for me, as a gay man, already struggling to try to fit into this world, when he became the president and we was elected president by people that I know very much who like him, who supported him, I call them bullies. And it just took me back to the fact that what it triggered in me. This is a story I made. I'm not making judgment about anybody. I'm just telling you about the reaction on me. The reaction on me was that the bullies had taken over the world. And that included my father, people who never could love and accept me for being a gay man. And then all of a sudden I found myself really in a very toxic environment. because I was kind of surrounded by a lot of people who really didn't really share my values, didn't share my concerns. As a matter of fact, a lot of people in my firm were kind of excited about the fact that we had elected another Republican as our president to because it'd be good for the market. So I just was terrorized. I was in so much fear that in my imposter syndrome, talk about getting loud. I'd always, all my life, dealt with imposter syndrome. I don't know if you know what imposter syndrome is, but imposter syndrome is that voice in your head that's always telling you you're a fraud, that you really don't have whatever it takes to be in the position you're in. I mean, here I am in this wonderful office with this great position, with these great clients and doing really well, making money, but I don't deserve it. And if anybody finds out that I'm a fraud, that I'm not good enough, and I'm not worthy to be here, it's just terrifying. So the problem is the more successful we become, quite frankly, the louder that voice can become, and particularly when something like that gets triggered. So I went into so much fear and panic that my business really began to just plummet. I was like a walking ball of fear. No one wanted to work with me. My clients didn't want to work. My old clients didn't want to work. I couldn't attract new clients. People in the office, I didn't want to work with me. I was a mess, basically. I was just a friggin' mess. And my whole business began to just completely fall apart. I mean, I went from being a top producer to not even making enough money to keep my contract. And it really put me into what I will say is the dark night of the soul. I went into a really, really dark place. And I remember one day my AA sponsor said to me, "Martin, you aren't sober." And I said, "What do you mean I'm not sober? I haven't had a drink in a number of years." And she said, "No, it's not about alcohol. It's about money. You are obsessed with money. And that's what's destroying your business. It's your fear around money. It's your obsession with it." And so I had to agree that she was right. She says, "All you ever talk about is," and the more your business goes down, the more obsessed you are with it. And let's look at that. So I agreed with her. I trusted her. She said, "I know what it feels like because I was there once myself." And she was a pretty good coach, and she was making some good money, and she was a good coach. And so she was not only was a coach, she was my AA sponsor, but she was a good coach. So she took me through the 12 steps of recovery, the same way that you would take somebody trying to recover from alcohol or drugs. But instead, we were working with my obsession with money. And Lord, did we find some stuff. It's just like when you begin to unpack and look under the hood, I found all kinds of stuff in my history. Some things that happened long before I was born. For example, my grandfather killed his brother over money back in 1918 or something like that. And he was one of the wealthiest men in South Georgia. Big old fancy house with columns and all this kind of stuff. And he shot and killed his brother, dead. Supposedly in self-defense. They never went to trial. It was in the paper, and somebody watched it, and they said his brother came at him with some kind of weapon or something, and he shot him, killed him. So that sort of set the stage for our family, and he had like 9 children. And I don't think their lives were ever the same after that. They never really quite enjoyed that big house they built, but they tried. And my grandfather, his son, went to college in a Stutz Bearcat, which was the best car. It was like the fanciest car you could have, particularly for a college kid. So my grandfather went to the University of Georgia in this great big Stutz Bearcat, and he went to study law and everything. But the thing about my grandfather was he never really made any money. He never felt worthy. And he ended up committing suicide in his late 60s, broke, penniless, not a dime. And then you get to my parents, my mother and father. My father was the grandson of this guy my grandfather killed his brother. And he too had inherited all this negative energy around money and fear of money. And because it had just been such a sore subject in their family. And so, and I probably most of my life, my parents argued probably more about money and fought about money more than anything else. And at a very young age, not to mention the fact that I felt like I was different from everybody because I didn't know what gay was. I was a kid, but I knew I was not. I knew I was a sissy probably or something. I wasn't like everybody. I wasn't like normal boys, put it that way. So on top of all that, I heard my mother always angry at my father for not bringing. And I think she just was scared. I don't think she was a loving person, but she was a young woman and a young mother in South Georgia, which was new territory for her. And I think she had thought she was marrying it. She saw my great grandfather's big old house. I think she thought she was marrying into money. The last thing she married into was money. There was no money left. It was like ruined finery. There was no money. And I think she never let my father forget it. And he never lived up to her standards financially. And they fought about money, and they fought about money, and they fought about money all the time. And I learned at a very young age that the only people who are worthy of love are people who make money. People like doctors and have big houses and all this. I had this notion that that's where value was. That was what important. That's how people were judged by how worthy they were, by how much money they had. And so I spent my life on a road of success so that I would be successful and make a lot of money, and my mother would love me. Basically, I felt like I didn't belong in this world, but it was driven by fear. And that's what all came down to a big halt in 2016. Is that, and I'm grateful for it now, but I'm going to tell you. So there I was. And so after going through those steps, and we realized that basically everything that I was worried about was based on a great big lie. I didn't know what the scarcity mindset was back in those days. I just knew I was scared. As a matter of fact, my spiritual teacher said to me one time, Martin, you're not just afraid of money. Money terrorizes you. And I know it terrorizes a lot of people because when you've got a history of financial trauma, when money was used as a form of reward and punishment, which it was so many of our, I don't care how poor or rich you are, money is used a lot in our culture and our society, not out of meanness, but as a form of reward and punishment. You make good grades, I'll buy you a new car. Whatever. You don't make grades, I'm going to take your car away. Whatever it is, to get us to do certain things, our families would sometimes, and people would reward us with financial reward. So we created this illusion that money is some form of trinket. If you're a good person, you'll have money, and if you're a bad person, you won't have money. Basically, what it comes down to. So, after going through all that, I remember one day I was sitting on the sofa in one of my darkest moments, really dark moments, and my spiritual teacher asked me. She said, so talk to me about where you are right now. And I was like, well, I'm so angry. I feel like a victim of the world. Here I had worked so hard to earn money and be a good wealth manager and all this kind of stuff. And yet I am lying on the sofa in a pity party, feeling sorry for myself. And I don't know how to get out of here. I don't know how to get out of this. I've done everything I can. And I even had people telling me, Martin, you could go bankrupt in a second because you would qualify. It would be an external solution. It would provide me some relief. But my spiritual teacher is a wise woman, and she's still my spiritual teacher, said to me, Martin, you could declare bankruptcy, but I'm going to suggest something else. You've been a meditator and you've been a contemplative for years. For years. 40, actually. And why don't you apply some contemplative prayer? Why don't you apply the principle of serenity and surrender? Why don't you look at the idea of surrendering the problem? Because you clearly have created the problem. Why don't you surrender it to God? It's like It's like the third step in 12 step. Really, really surrender to God. Just admit you created this problem and you don't know how to solve it. And you're miserable and you feel bad about yourself and you don't feel worthy and you feel shame. But you created this. And the only person that can let it go is you. And you got to have to practice serenity. But there is a power that loves you. And you know that because you've been praying for years and it helped you with alcohol and some other things. But now it's time to really apply it to your big one, and that's money, your obsession with money. So with the help of the A, and I sat there for a while, and I did what she told me. I slowed down long enough, and I said, God, I've created this big mess. I've done everything I can think of to try to make money and try to make a difference in the world. And I had a mission, I had all this stuff, but nothing was working. So I just said, I give up, I surrender. I surrendered from my deepest place of agony. And this is going to sound a little bit cheesy, but as soon as I did, as soon as I finally just said, God, I don't know how to solve this mess I've created, the wildest thing happened. This sense of peace and power like descended on me. And it filled me up with so much joy and presence and power. I mean, it was like I could literally, it was like something like a blanket of love just fell over me and held me. And a voice came into my head and said, Martin, none of this stuff that you worry so much about matters. None of it. At the time, I was trying to get certified with the Mankind Project, and that didn't go so well. So it was saying, you don't need to get certified with the Mankind Project. You don't need to make a lot of money. You don't need to be a successful wealth manager. You don't need to do anything, quite frankly, except one thing. And that is to show up with love and gratitude, and I will do the rest. I meaning the divine. I was familiar with that part of myself from years and years of contemplation, contemplative practice, sitting on a mat. And so I knew that part of me. So when that part of me, I call her Joy the Wise Woman, when that part of me began to speak to me from that place of truth, none of this stuff matters. All the work that you're doing, you are loved, you are worthy, and all you have to do for the rest of your life is to just show up with love and gratitude, and I will do the rest. Now, I'd like to tell you that, okay, from then on, I went skipping out of the world and everything is super grand. Well, I got the message, or I got the burning bush, if you will. I didn't know what to do with it. So I actually, for a few months, we even went darker, and I knew I had discovered who I wasn't. I wasn't a wealth manager, and I wasn't unworthy. I was love. And I didn't know what that, and I didn't even know what that meant, really. So I with the guidance of my spiritual teacher and I began to just pray on that. I began to just pray on that serenity and on that surrendering. God, I don't know how I created this. Show me a solution. Show me a way. And of course, in the beginning, I wanted them to show me more clients and more money in my job. That did not happen. But what he did do, but what God did do, what she did do, was got me out of that and into what I'm doing today. She gave me, I found the courage in myself to leave that toxic environment, to leave my job as a wealth manager, and do something completely unprecedented. And that is become a coach. I toyed with that idea for years, and I even thought about going and getting a certificate. But then I thought, well, how could I do this? So I began to pivot. I began to get some coaching clients. And I'd been doing shadow work for years with the Mankind Project. So I was a master facilitator of shadow work because I'd been doing it for 20 years. I also had been 40 years sitting on a cushion. I'd been a meditator. I'd been I'm a contemplative and a mystic. And I've also, from that, I've gotten very familiar with the teachings, what I call the wisdom teachings of Jesus. Now, you aren't familiar with the wisdom teachings of Jesus, but Jesus, like Buddha, was a teacher of non-duality. He was a teacher of higher levels of consciousness. He called it heaven. Buddha called it spaciousness. It's all the same thing. He was not here to create Jesus was not here to create a religion or a belief system. He was here to teach a path to enlightenment. And that's what I got. So I began to think, okay, things began to shift. And I took on some coaching clients. And damn it, I wasn't pretty good at it. Applying those principles, I was able to come up with some really good support for people to get out of where I was to where I am today. That's what I discovered. I wasn't the only one stuck and struggling with fears of unworthiness and imposter syndrome and fear of money and all that stuff. We all grew up in the same culture. And particularly for gay men who have a real sense of a real issue with their sexual orientation and fear around that and shame around that, I was like, wow, this is really important. It's really important that I get out here and share this with the world. And that's what I'm doing now. And I'll tell you something. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. I joined this great group of people called the Unstoppable Entrepreneurs about a few months ago to get some coaching myself. I needed it. I got to a plateau where I just really didn't have enough confidence in myself. I needed to go to a different level. So I joined this team called the Unstoppable Entrepreneurs, of these brilliant people, mostly women, led mostly by women. And I'd call it a movement it's a movement. It's a real movement, if you will, from my perspective, and it's jump in if they find in my tribe. And these are people who are truly, truly, truly getting people out of this scarcity way of thinking, this scarcity mindset, and into prosperity living, and actually knowing you're worthy, knowing you have gifts, knowing you're a good coach, knowing you're a good caregiver, knowing whatever it is that you do is of value to the world. And then begin to go out and offer that value to the planet, to people who want it, in exchange for money. Because then money no longer is a form of reward and punishment, but now money becomes an expression of love, a resource, an infinite resource of creative energy to go out and do more, to do this. So money shifted so everything transformed within me. I transformed from my image of myself as being an unworthy human being and not good enough and, an imposter and all those things, to really seeing the truth that I'm a really loving, caring, compassionate man with a lot of gifts and a lot to share, and a lot to offer the world. So and that's what transformation is. It's a shift in the way we see ourselves in the world. So I began to see myself from the truth, from a man of compassion and love and empathy and all those things we appreciate in good leaders. And I saw myself as a leader. But I also began to see I had a different relationship with God, my creator. I was no longer seeing, but when I was living in scarcity and struggle, I kind of thought God, I had sort of an old Sunday school attitude of God as being this judgmental character, judging me for not being good. And isn't that ridiculous? My creator didn't create something she thought was good enough. And that's what she was telling me. You don't have to do anything to prove you're loved. I created you. We are created of the same fabric, and I love what we've created. So I began to cultivate a different image of God. God was a loving, benevolent source of power for me. And finally, my whole perception of the world changed. I no longer saw the world as something that was threatening and I better stay away from and better protect myself from, but as a world, a universe of love, creative energy that's here to foster and hold our backs and support us in our journey of life so that we can live a life. It wants us to live here, come here and be joyful and happy and share and live lives of love and joy. And it doesn't mean we're not going to have challenges, but what it means is it tells us, yes, the world is going to have challenges. And yes, I'm here. I'm here to help you get through them. I, Joy the Wise Woman, out of the divine presence in you, because that's who we are. That's who we be. So that's how I got to become a teacher and a mindset coach, because it was a shift in my mindset. It was a transformational shift from the way I see myself, from the way I see God, and from the way I see the world, from a spiritual perspective. And when I aligned with that truth of this, because that's what we are, we're spirit. So when I aligned all of that, that's living in flow. That's living in love. That's living in alignment. And it's just a much more fun way to live. Every single day now, I show up. That's my mantra, with love and gratitude, and get out. And my other one is let go. Just let go. My ego is always trying to create an agenda. It needs to do this. Enjoy saying, let go. I got this. You just get out of the way. I got this. You just show up with love and gratitude in the moment. I got this. And I do that with my coaching clients. I do that with my family. I do that with all sorts of people. Everybody. I do that. It's a moment-to-moment thing. And I find myself often struggling. If I find myself struggling, again, which I do, we all fall back in fear of not being good enough, I have to stop and pray, what we're going to do in a minute, and surrender and get my power back, get back into the truth. That's why I incorporate contemplative prayer as a daily practice to empower ourselves to show up and make a difference in the world. And when we're empowered to make a difference in the world, we're also open to the opportunity of being able to give and receive financial love in the form of money. I'm not terrorized of money anymore. I enjoy money. Money is fun. It doesn't represent how valuable I am. It has nothing to do with that. It just says, if I'm making a lot of money, I'm making a big difference in the world, because people are paying me to help them get what they want in life. And that's very fulfilling. That's very fulfilling. So that's my story of how I became a spiritual teacher and a prosperity mindset coach. And the reason why I work, and I'll finish with this before we meditate. I got some real clarity in the last few months working with the Unstoppable about who I serve. And I serve me. I serve people who are like me. People who are like me a few years ago. People who are like me, gay, transgender, or bisexual men who feel unworthy because of their sexual orientation, who are always trying to prove their worth by getting ahead and making money and being important and whatever all that kind of stuff is. Imposter syndrome, struggling with always trying to prove my worth and being and those are the people that I can help. Because those men, I know. And I know there's a lot of you out there. So I went from being just a general coach to actually getting laser focused on the group of the world that I could be the most beneficial to. And I'll one more thing too. I'm a shadow worker. I'm not a therapist, and I've never really been trained as a coach, a life coach. I've never taken coach training, but I have gotten 20 years of shadow work facilitation mastery. But it's always been with men. And I came to realize that when I'm trying to do shadow work with women, I don't understand that interior landscape of feminine energy. I understand the feminine energy in men, the divine feminine energy, but I don't understand shadow with women. So I quit because I really disrupted too many relationships there. And I thought there are other people who can help them better than I can. So I think part of maturity as a coach is to realize who you can and who you can't help. And that's why it was like, well, why do you have this group for gay, bi, and transgender men? Because that's the community that I understand. And that's the community that I feel that I can serve the best. And so that's why I do that. And also I have another group called a Facebook group called the Financial Mystic Sanctuary, where I can share my wisdom and knowledge and contemplative prayer. And I love doing that too. I love women. I love women. I love them. They're part of, I can't imagine. It's nothing to do with that. It's who I can serve and being clear about that. So that's my story. That's how I got to be here. And thank you for listening to that. I'm going to now set the timer and we're going to meditate. For 20 minutes. So there's that bell. So we're going to do something. The way I meditate, the way I pray is something called centering prayer. And it was a form of prayer that Father Thomas Keating came up with about 40 years ago. It's really based on the idea of getting still, surrendering, letting go, and getting into heart space, getting out of our head and into our heart space. That's what the hero's journey is, by the way. The hero's journey is the journey from our head to our heart, and that's a very long road sometimes. But if we get into this centering prayer, which we're going to do in a second, it's a great way to empower ourselves with the heart, which always knows the truth. Back in my story, the heart was always knowing. My head was the one that was all screwed up. So we're going to use the breath to go inside ourselves and to become less focused on what's out here in our heads and get more focused on what's going on inside ourselves. And usually there's a conflict going on. So one way to resolve the conflict is just to go in and look at it and let it go. Call it a conflict, call it a problem, whatever it is, there's usually some subtle one kind of moving around inside us. So we're going to go inside and see what that is. But now, people talk about meditation and they think sometimes that they're going to stop thinking. Oh, I can't stop thinking. Well, you're never going to stop thinking. I guess meditators that have been doing it for years get to some level, get to pretty high levels of consciousness of non-thinking. But for most of us, we get little gaps in thinking. We get little nuggets of grace, we'll call it. So what we can do is we can slow down the thinking. We can slow down the mind. And when we think, our tongues vibrate. And what we can do is we can kind of reverse engineer the way that works. If we slow down the tongue, we can slow down the thinking. So it all comes down to using the breath to get focus inside ourselves, and to use the breath as a way to massage the tongue, slow down the vibration, and slow down the thinking. So this is a way to do that. Take the tip of your tongue and rest it on the roof of your mouth just behind your front teeth. Slightly part your lips and relax your jaw, and just breathe normally. And as you're breathing, notice the breath sliding across your tongue. The breath going in and the breath going out. Just allow it to gently massage your tongue, to sort of relax it and slow it down. So begin to just focus on that. The breathing in and the breathing out. The breath coming in through the nostrils and in through the mouth. Gently massaging the tongue. Opening up the heart. And with your belly muscles, pull the breath deep into your belly as an anchor. And just do that naturally for a few moments as you get familiar with yourself. Notice any obstacles. One big obstacle is the mind telling you not to do this, the thinking. And it's not to get into an argument with the mind. It's just to say, okay, let it go. And come back to the breath and the massaging of the tongue. When you find yourself thinking, which we all do, just come back to the breath, let it go, and massage your tongue. And you may have to do that over and just rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. And to create a little bit more space inside ourselves, we're going to do 3 big belly breaths. So just breathe. Notice the rise and the fall of the belly and the rib cage. And with a belly breath, we're going to use the muscles in our belly to pull the breath in through the nose and the mouth, down the throat, massage the tongue, open up the heart, and anchor that breath deep, expand the belly, and really, really get space in there and really anchor that breath deep into your belly. You ready? With the mouth and nose, massage the tongue, hold it, bring it down deeper, hold it, and let it go. And as you let it go, let every belief, every opinion, every judgment, every story you make up about me, yourself, this world, let it all go. Intentionally surrender it and let it go. And fall back into the breath. Feel the anchor of the breath in your belly. Allow the breath to open up the channel from the top of your head to your butt in the chair. And just breathe and create some space. Letting go of any sense of needing to control anything, know anything. Just be still and breathe. We're going to do another big belly breath. So with your belly, bring in the air through the nostrils and through the mouth. Massage the tongue, open up the heart space, and bring that breath deep into your belly and hold it. Just like you're holding on to all these thoughts, all these worries, all these concerns, all this shame, all this thing you're supposed to do, and now just let them all go. Hold on to nothing. There's nothing you have to do. There's actually nothing you can do. Let go of any notion that you control anything and that you know anything. Just let it all go. And come back to the breath. Find that anchor in your belly and pull the breath in through the nose and through the mouth. Massage the tongue. Open up the heart. And pull that breath deep into the belly as a grounding. And we're going to do one more belly breath, and then I'm going to be still. I'm going to be quiet for the rest of the meditation, with the exception of some interval bells that are going to come off and wake us up from our thinking, our sleeping, our worrying, so we can reset. So you ready? With your belly muscles, tongue on the roof of your mouth, relaxed. Pull the breath in through the mouth and through the nose. Feel it going across the tongue, coming down the throat, expanding the heart, and then bringing it deep into the belly, and really expand your belly this time. Taking a little bit more breath. And now hold it. It's a little bit uncomfortable. Holding on to stuff is just uncomfortable, isn't it? So just let it go. Just let it go. And know that I am love. Oh, there's the sweet sound of that interval bell to wake us up, to bring us out of our thinking, our worrying, our sleeping. And the invitation is just to smile at that brilliant brain of yours and let it go and fall back into that anchor in your belly. Fall back into love. Fall back into spaciousness. Fall back into that wonderful, wonderful cloud of unknowing. Oh, there's that sweet wake up bell again. Thank you, because I was so deep in a little thought, a little planning, good planning, but I was definitely down a hole. So thank you for waking me up so I can let it go and reset and fall back into that emptiness, that infinite, infinite, infinite love consciousness, our essence. And there's the end of our 20-minute meditation. Thank you for being with me today. I want to make you aware of a couple of things coming up. I have created a Facebook group for gay, transgender, and bisexual men. It's called the Financial Heart Space for gay, transgender, and bisexual men. And I lead a workshop in there. It's for us to love and support each other as a community, to build and grow our businesses, and to be able to look at our shadows, to look at those things that we feel where we're lacking, in a safe environment where we all understand each other, so that we can actually say, okay, well, I dealt with that shadow belief too. I dealt with that feelings of unworthiness as a gay man, as a transgender man, or as a bisexual man, based on because of my sexual orientation as a man. And that's why that's why we've created that group specifically for us to do our work. And every Wednesday I do a workshop, a live workshop in that group that I invite you to. And right now we're doing one on problem solving. I created a workbook called the Heart Space problem-solving workbook, and it's based on the three principles of all principles of 12-step recovery, but it's three principles, three processes, three steps. And I'm going to be, if you want to, you can join me in there on tomorrow at 1:00, and I'm going to be teaching Bring Your Problem, and join me in that Facebook group at 1 Eastern time, noon Eastern time, and I will teach you how to solve your problem. I'll take you you can get a copy of the workbook, and you can bring your problem, and I'm going to take you through the steps, and you can solve that problem. It's live. And so bring your problem and join the group, and if you're not already, and I will help you solve that problem. Now, if you're not gay, bi, or transgender man, I have another option for you. I have another Facebook group. It's called the Financial Mystic Sanctuary. And you're welcome to join that group as well. Anybody's welcome to join that group. And I'll do a lot of teaching in that. As a matter of fact, this Saturday, I'm going to be doing a live workshop, the same exact live workshop. So you can bring your problem. One of the problems that people love to help work with is how they're stuck in this old scarcity mindset that they're not enough, and get out of it. So one of the problems we can solve on Saturday at this workshop in the Financial Mystic Sanctuary is this old idea that we're not enough, this old scarcity thinking, so that you can actually begin to live in prosperity. You can begin to live a life of love, joy, and prosperity. It's a mind shift. It's a transformation. So the workbook is a opportunity to go through a transformational mindset shift from being in a place of unworthiness and scarcity and doubt to being in a place of love, joy, and prosperity. Because that's the problem that we're trying to solve. Most of us are trying to solve. And that's what I'm there for. That's what the workbook's about. So those are two opportunities for you right there, depending on who you are and what you want to do. I'd love to have you see you on the inside. And if you got any comments, please post them. Send me a direct message. And I think Thursday, I won't be here tomorrow because I'll be doing the live workshop in the GBTQ Facebook group at 1. But I believe Thursday, I spoke to my guest, Brandon, who was supposed to be here today, and he's going to, hopefully, if the internet's working, he will be here to share his story with us on Thursday at noon. So, in the meantime, may love and prosperity prevail. Thank you so much for listening.